Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you taking the time out.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So there's like a ton of things I want to talk to you about, but I think the most important thing, at least in my house with two little girls, is Monster High.
Yes.
First of all, like I gotta think I mean, with the character you play, like it's got to be so cool to have these just little kids look up to you, and your character. It's just got to be like the best feeling in the world.
It really is, especially because um I was that little kid who loved Ghoulia. When I was growing up, I was obsessed with the Ghoulia doll. She was my favorite. So to be that person for little kids now is something that still doesn't feel 100% real to me, but just the crazy best feeling. Like it's why I got into acting in the first place is I wanted to tell stories, I wanted to entertain people, especially for me now. I want to help kids. Um and so it's really a dream come true for me.
So as you mentioned, like you were a big fan of like the series. Were you like a huge fan of the character as well?
Ghoulia was my favorite Monster High doll. I loved playing with Monster High dolls, and Ghoulia was by far my favorite. I loved her outfits. I was big into all the outfits, but I just really liked that she was a nerd and she was a bookworm, and her friends didn't judge her for that. And so she was someone I really looked up to and loved.
Just how long does it take to get into all the makeup and the stuff that you have to put on every morning?
It takes about 2 hours when we have it down to a science. Sometimes I think there was one time it stretched up to 3 hours just because things were going wrong and we had more time. But it kind of takes 2 to 2.5 hours to, watch myself slowly transform into a zombie.
What are you doing those 2 hours? Because I'm an actor too, and I've had like a couple like face gashes and things like that, which are pretty quick usually. What do you do those 2 hours?
It's lucky that the makeup takes the longest, takes much longer than hair, but I'm lucky that my makeup artist is super fun to talk to, and usually there's actors all around me, so usually we're chatting a bit. If it's a super early morning, sometimes I find myself like fully zoning out and falling asleep. I had a 2 a.m. pickup one day, and
Oh.
so that was a bit of a sleeping in the makeup chair while I'm getting the lashes put on. But it's kind of a whole family on set, especially since all got to come back for the next movie, and it was pretty much all the same people. So we all knew each other super well. So we kind of just chat about anything and everything while we spend that time together.
So are you like the kind of person like where once you put on you got all the green stuff on and like the hair and makeup, does that help you sort of get easily get into the character?
Yeah, big time. I mean, I think that's why we're really lucky with Monster High is we don't have to like really delve too much, for me at least, because I grew up loving Monster High. I didn't have to delve too much into like character work or anything. I'm not great at that, not big into that because I like things to feel supernatural, and when I put too much prep on top of myself, I lose my naturalness. So with Monster High, what's really lucky is that I don't have to like do emotional work or anything to turn into like a zombie and feel like it and figure out like what would she feel like, what would she do? Because when you're bright green and in the Monster High clothing and you've got blue hair almost down to your feet, there's no way to not feel like the character.
Mhm.
I'm a very physical person, so I find even for auditions and all of that, I have to feel like the character to be able to play the character. That's the biggest thing for me. As soon as I'm in costume, I'm like, cool, I've got this, I'm done, I'm ready. So from Monster High being green, it adds a whole other layer to that.
And congratulations on the second movie.
Yes. Very exciting. We just finished in February,
Oh,
so
did you? Nice.
yes, and everything has been elevated. The obviously the characters, we all know our characters better, so we were able as actors to elevate the story, but the dancing and singing, I would say, is the biggest elevation. I'm very, very lucky that I have a dance background because there were some fast steps in there.
I was going to ask you, would you ever think about like doing some like musical theater, like something Broadway or like I don't know.
that's a huge dream of mine. I did a year of musical theater training before diving back more into, just vocal training and focusing on ballet instead of commercial dance, which is, I love commercial dance, obviously, because I do Monster High, but I'm big into classical ballet. So that's where my training stems from. And I'm lucky that I have that technical base to bring to Ghoulia and Monster High to be able to pick up the moves and turn into a dancing monster.
So Lucky Hank, man, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Uh so I would imagine your audition was like on self-tape, right?
Yeah, so the world of self-tapes as actors now, it was just one in, set, do my tape, sent it in. It was a Bob Odenkirk show, and I was like, wow, there's no way they're gonna hire me for that, because I find that humbleness sometimes for me turns into not believing in myself, which is something I'm working on. But I think a lot of actors never believe that we're going to get that role we really, really want. So when I saw the, you know, material for Lucky Hank and how amazing the writing was, plus the cast it had, I was like, yeah, that's a long shot. So when I got that email saying, hey, you're on hold for it, and then, hey, you booked it, that was one of the greatest moments in my career, because it was just like a quick self-tape, hope they like me, that turned into one of the best roles I've ever gotten to do.
So it was basically just one and done, one self-tape, you sent it in and you booked it.
That was it. Same for Monster High.
That's amazing.
It was, I was, there's, for the things I book, I expect a lot more rounds. So I'm very lucky that with both Monster High and Lucky Hank, I was able to book it off of one tape.
That is just fantastic. My God. Yeah, you got to, I would be like jumping up for joy, especially because I wouldn't have to do another self-tape.
Don't have to do a Zoom chemistry read,
Right,
which is
yeah.
the hardest thing to do, in my opinion, as an actor.
Right. Yeah. I've been in some like Zoom acting classes where you're like reading with somebody, on Zoom. And it's just, it's good. It's fine. I don't have to deal with traffic or anything to go to actual, but it just seems you're just missing something.
Yeah, it's our struggle as actors now is to make a screen feel like real life so that we can get comfortable with it and still book roles.
Right. 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 So the cast is just freaking great. They're fantastic. Tons of veteran like comedic actors. What's it like working with them? Are you getting like tiny bits of advice, especially working from somebody like Bob Odenkirk?
I mean, I'm going to be so honest, I was terrified walking onto that set, because not only do we have Bob Odenkirk, but we've got Oscar Nunez, which I love The Office. So working with him, I was like, I never expected I'd get to do that. But everyone on set was so nice. And I mean, if someone like Bob Odenkirk can walk in and introduce himself to me and ask how I'm doing and all of that stuff, I mean, that was a crazy experience for me. My mind kind of went blank, because I think I made a bit of a fool of myself, because all I could think was, that's Bob Odenkirk. But watching them all act and watching them perform, and, Oscar Nunez is always doing a bit, and getting to see how they turn into their character so flawlessly is the best class you can take as an actor, which is, it's hard because, as actors, it's hard to get on a set because we do so many auditions. But the best way to learn and the best way to grow as an actor is working on a set. And so then when I got to work with people that established, that just elevates my work that much more.
What was your very first scene with Bob like? I mean, were you nervous?
I mean, I was a little bit nervous because, in my head, there's always this thought of, what if they hate me and fire me? Which I think a lot of actors feel that. I feel comfortable saying that we're all a little bit scared we're going to never get another job or get pushed off set or something. Because when it's your dream, it's something you care about so much. And this was a role that I definitely cared about so much. So I was really scared, but I had to just kind of, push through it in my head. When I'm on set and I get nervous, I just think, well, I don't have to watch this if I don't want to, so it doesn't really matter. I can pretend this never happened. And then I find I'm able to get over my nerves a little bit more. And just what's great about Lucky Hank is it's just human beings. really the characters are so grounded and real. And since I was just playing a college student, I'm college aged. I was able to just be a person and, you know, get over that hurdle of nerves and just be there saying words. And so that was, you know, a little bit surreal to be doing that with Bob Odenkirk. um, but, you know, I tried to treat it just as I'm here to create a story for people.
Uh, you have been doing this for a while now. Uh, when you get on set now, how prepared are you? Like, are you able to walk on set that morning and just look at your scenes and get to work, or do you have to like, do you still like to prepare at night, or like what is your sort of process for that day?
I always like to learn my lines frontwards, backwards, upside down, and inside out. I love the Viola Davis quote that I'm not going to say correctly probably, but she basically says learn the lines and then throw them away. And because you have to be so flexible on a set. So for me, I do like to have an idea of what I bring to the character and what I'm going to do and some fun ideas, but you know, if I'm filming an audition, say with my mom, versus if I was filming it with you, you're going to give me a completely different read. So I have to be able to adjust my performance to what my scene partner is giving me, because I might have thought they were going to play it a completely different way. And I can't, you know, still give the scene exactly what I thought it should be if my scene partner is going a completely different angle. It won't make sense. So I don't like to over prepare in the sense that I can't be flexible, but I like to be able to, if they were like, oh, we're rushing, we're going to go rehearse on set right now, that I'm not like, I didn't learn the lines yet because I was planning to do that in makeup. Um, so I like to know my lines all the way through and then just be, you know, kind of clay for the directors to do whatever they want with.
Did you know like your do you or did you know your character's sort of arc throughout the season when you signed up?
I didn't really. They kept things very, very under wraps for this thing, and we're still kind of, you know, learning from the actors and creating it around them. So, you know, we got the episodes kind of like two at a time to kind of see what goes on. And of course, we have no idea if we're getting a season two and what will happen in that. Um, but I'm very, very excited for everyone to see where it goes. It's a very character-driven show, and the characters are, you know, real people that you probably know in your everyday life, which is what makes it so funny. Because it's, you know, obviously elevated comedy, but still so real and grounded.
I gotta think that's one very cool thing about, I mean, among the million other cool things about being like a series regular, like getting the script and you have no idea what's going to happen to your character each each episode goes along. That's got to just be like so kind of exciting every time you just open that first page, you know?
Yep. I mean, I was a while back I was a series regular on a different show, and I you know, getting to see my character's arc through the series was such a crazy experience, especially like going from the many, many rounds of auditions that I did for that one to being on it and being like, oh, this is where they're going. Oh, I remember that scene.
Um, it, uh, I can't believe how many things you have going on in your life right now. You have a book that's about to come out. Holy,
Dude.
I'm exhausted just hearing all the things you're doing. How did you like? Well, first tell me what it's about.
So, Stars and Swashbucklers is a debut young adult sci-fi fantasy novel, and it takes place in this futuristic world where Earth has shattered into islands floating between the stars. I'm big into pirates, so the main theme of the book is ships sailing between the stars instead of across the ocean, and it follows Anya Marcox, who's 16 years old, and she's an average girl who would do anything to not be average, and that includes getting drawn into the seedy underbelly of rebels and royals searching for a relic that could change the fate of the islands. So she has to contend with first love, royals, rebels, evil monsters lurking in the mists between islands, and her own nightmares that are more real than she may believe. And also mental health, because although I wasn't 100% aware of it while I was writing, when I went back and read the book, I realized that I had written OCD into the magic of my book and turned you know, this monster in my mind, as I call it in the book, I turned it into a tangible monster on the page that can be slain and dealt with if, you know, you have the right sword and the grit to do it.
Did you write out a whole like outline of the book first, or did you just kind of go off the cuff and start writing?
I
This is my writing.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah.
I I'm very lucky. I got a very easy job of it because it all came to me in a dream. I had this amazing dream that all I wanted was for that to be real life because I grew up reading fantasy novels. I was prepared to slay dragons, not to deal with bullies. Um so when I had this dream, all I thought was, "Oh, I wish that was real life." And so I wrote the book entirely in secret, but I did do a full outline for it because I didn't want to forget the dream and all the plot points. So I kind of wrote down a full synopsis of what would happen in the book. Then I kind of went chapter by chapter, like what'll happen here, what'll happen here, what'll happen here. And it's interesting because I've wanted to tell stories my whole life. So I've tried writing books before. I think like lots of little girls who want to tell stories. And it just kind of petered out as soon as I told someone about it. And I got about 30 pages in, and then I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
But with Stars and Swashbucklers, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want it to go away. As soon as I tell a story, it doesn't need to be told. And so I didn't want that to happen with this magical place that my brain had given me. So I wrote it entirely in secret. And then my mom just got this 600-page book in her inbox, which now it's not that long. That was book 1 and 2. I've split it in half. But I chronicled it chapter by chapter what'll happen. So basically the entire book had been written by my brain, and I call it more transcribing. I just kind of sat there and let it play out across the inside of my eyelids and transcribed it all down.
That's amazing. You know what? That's really interesting. Like once you said the story out loud, your brain's just like, okay, it's done. So going further, because I know this is gonna be like a whole kind of a series. Are you gonna do that going further?
Yeah, so obviously to query it and pitch it to my publisher, I had to give them a little bit of a rundown of here's where we're going in the series. But I didn't give them any huge spoilers. And the story itself, I feel like since I got the first book out and down, now I can't really stop myself from writing, and it feels a little bit safer, but still there's so much that I'm like, nope, you can't read this, you can't look at this, it's not done yet, you don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Good. I can't believe the output you have and everything, how great everything is, just well done. So my final question that I want to ask, that I love to ask, is what's been your worst audition?
Oh, I think my
It's
worst
hard now, especially with self-tape, so you don't really know.
oh, I'm going back to the time before self-tapes. It was in LA during pilot season, when pilot season was still a thing. And I walked into that room, and I was, I think, probably about like 12 or 13 years old. And this man had 2 piles of headshots. This was back also in the days when you brought your headshot and resume in. So he had a pile of about like maybe 5 or 6 headshots, and then at least 50 in the other. So obviously already, like the 50, they're the people he's cut. And the 5 or 6 headshots, that's like people he's considering. Before I did anything, I hand him the headshot, looks at it, looks at me, throws it in the big pile and says, "Okay, go ahead." And I'm like, "But you already decided you don't want me. What am I doing here?" So that's one thing I like about things being digital, is I never have to have that experience again.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Well, hey, thank you so much for chatting with me. Really appreciate it. And I hope the book is a huge success, along with Lucky Hank season 2 and all that stuff for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this. This was so fun.